Is your LLC in tax trouble? Well, in this video, I am going to tell you 5 things that you can do in the event that your LLC is in tax trouble. But before we get started, I want you to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you stay to the end, I am going to give you my #1 strategy for getting out of any tax situation that you may be in. So let's get after it. Many times when we are trying to generate revenue, we innocently get ourselves into a tax slinky. Maybe we made more money than we thought we made. It doesn't matter the reason. When you find yourself in tax trouble, it can literally be overwhelming. It can be crippling, which is why I want to tell you 5 things that you can do to help you. #1 is request a copy of your transcripts. You can go to irs.gov and request a copy of transcripts. Why do you want a copy of your tax transcripts? Because you want to make sure that the return that you filed is the return that IRS has received. You have to remember that we are dealing in an electronic age where the transfer of data sometimes does not come out correct on the other end. When you get a tax transcript, you can give that tax transcript to someone who can read it. Even you could possibly read it, and you can understand exactly what IRS is looking at and why you may be in tax trouble. It is going to show you how much you owe, the income that was on the return, the deductions that were on the return. And many times when I have requested a tax transcript, what IRS has is not even what my client has filed. So getting that tax transcript is important. #2, request a record of accounts. A record of accounts is literally a record of accounts. It accounts for every date and every dollar and every charge that IRS has on your account. When we file our tax returns, IRS puts a date next to our account. So for example, if you file your tax return for April 15th and they receive it April 15th, it'll say April 15th tax return received. When they get your tax return and they assess the tax, then that means charge you the actual liability that you owe them. It will say April 15th tax assessed and the amount of the tax. What's important about a record of accounts is making sure that you're looking for procedural things. Did you certify mail your tax return on April 15th, but it's set in IRS's mail room for a couple of months and they didn't process it until maybe June 15th, July 15th, so that the date that they show that they received your return is not correct. Therefore, they're penalizing you. Did they assess you interest and penalties and you didn't owe interest and penalties because maybe they received your payment late? This is the importance of a record of accounts. It allows you to kind of go through and audit what IRS is showing on your account so you can make sure that it's accurate, because many times just procedural things can drive your tax bill up and you're wondering why you owe so much money, and that could be potentially the reason. #3, set up an installment agreement. An installment agreement is a powerful tool to use. If you find yourself owing money to the IRS and you're panicking because you're thinking, I can't afford to pay this right now. You don't want to file your tax return. Maybe you're scared. You don't even know how much you owe and you're just worried. When you know you have a solution where you can literally set up an installment agreement where you're going to make an agreement with IRS on how much you're going to pay them on a monthly basis. And here's the thing, people. IRS is willing to let you go on an installment agreement on a basic level up to 72 months, which is basically a good period of time to be able to pay them off. So let's say, for example, that you owe IRS $10,000, okay? You file your tax return, you owe them $10,000, you're like, oh crap, I can't afford to pay them. But knowing you can file an installment agreement form and you can request an installment agreement and you take that $10,000 over, say, 60 months or 72 months, you may owe IRS $600, you may owe IRS $700, your monthly fee is going to be low. So you now know you can pay IRS monthly. Yes, they're going to charge you penalties. Yes, they're going to charge you interest, but I am going to tell you the penalties along with the interest is going to be a lot less than you not filing a return. Because when you don't file a tax return and you owe, the penalties and interest are higher. So recognize the fact that you can use an installment agreement as a tool to mitigate the amount that you're going to have to pay out the door right away. The fourth thing that you can utilize is an offer and compromise. If you filed your LLC return and you're owing a lot of money, like, oh my gosh, there's no way in the world that I could pay that much money. I can't pay it today, and tomorrow is not looking good either. Then you're going to request an offer in compromise. You're going to fill out form 656. And this is where you're going to negotiate to pay a lot less of what you owe to compromise the entire tax. Let me give you an example. Let's say that you do your taxes and you owe IRS $30,000. You're like, oh my gosh, I can't pay that. There's no way I could pay it. I'm barely breaking even right now with my rent, my mortgage, my car payment, food, childcare. I can't pay that today, and I'm not even going to be able to pay it in 5 years, right? Go for the offer and compromise. This is where you say to IRS, I know I owe you that $30,000, that $20,000, that $10,000, whatever the amount is. But when you look at my financial picture, IRS, you can see I can't pay that. Would you be willing to take $5,000, $2,500, and would you be willing to take it in payments? That's right, you could do payments. Are you willing to take it in payments and that be the settle of the entire balance due? Offer and compromise, a very important tool to help you when you just cannot pay IRS. You can get that monkey off your back. The fifth thing that you can do, and this is a very powerful tool, is called FOIA, Freedom of Information Act request. A FOIA request, F Freedom, O of Information I, Act. A, Freedom of Information Act request. This is where you're going to write a letter to IRS and you're going to ask them to provide you with 100% of the information they have on file for you for a particular period of time. Why would you use a FOIA request? The reason why you use a FOIA request is because maybe you owe tax and you don't know why you owe tax. When you send in a FOIA request, IRS has to send you back all the information they have on you, including the notes that they have on file regarding your particular case. You want to know what's going on. So a Freedom of Information Act request is a powerful tool. You don't have to be in the dark about your tax situation. And if you don't understand it, you can always take that to somebody that does. But getting a Freedom of Information Act request out so you can find out why your LLC is in a slinky, so you can find out why you owe all of this tax is so important, because many times we can solve the problem once we find out the why. But if we don't know the why, we cannot solve the problem. So it's so important for you to find out the why. It's critical to understand the tools that you can utilize when you owe IRS and you find your LLC is in IRS trouble. The things that you want to do: request a record of accounts, request a copy of your transcripts, know that you can do an installment agreement if you owe more in your LLC than you can afford to pay. Know that you can do an offer and compromise if the amount you owe is so hellacious you can't pay it anyway. You can compromise the tax down to a lower amount. And know you can do a Freedom of Information Act request if you don't know what is going on or why you owe. You want to get all the information IRS has. All these are really important tools to know that you can utilize. Now, I told you if you stay to the end, I would give you my number one tool to help you resolve any type of tax issue with IRS. My number one tool is utilizing Form 911. Yes, Form 911. I didn't say call 911. I say use Form 911. You are able to utilize that when you find yourself in a tax slinky. You don't know what to do. You don't know how to get out of it. And when you file that form, you're going to file it with Taxpayer Advocate Office. Taxpayer Advocate is a separate independent office that will intervene between you and IRS. They become the mediator. They're the person that can help you solve a tax problem, and you can at least feel some level of protection. You do not have to pay the advocate because our hard-earned tax dollars are paying the advocate. So you want to make sure that you know you can use Form 911. And when you do, they are going to put a hold on your account. They're going to help you navigate the situation that you're in. So make sure that you utilize these tools if you find your LLC is in tax trouble. And here's the things, my friend, when you know better, you absolutely have to do better. That is why I want you to like, comment, and subscribe so I can keep you updated on all things tax.